kind of wanted to dive into it. I have one scientific question that I'd like to ask
Sure.
personally, and I also just wanted to give kind of like I guess, announcement to those who haven't met you first. Dr. Ratey's books have focused on not only the benefits physically of exercise, but more so mentally, like the treating of ADHD, anxiety, PTSD, and it's very interesting because I'm a kinesiology graduate myself, Dr. Ratey, and we didn't even learn any of this. And it's very easy for professors to say, go exercise because it's good for your, heart rate, it's good for your blood pressure, it's good for your cholesterol and all that. But that's not immediate, that's like a long-term thing. And then if you can say that, you exercise and you decrease your anxiety like this, I feel like that's a lot better of a sales pitch to give. And it doesn't seem like that's even the norm, even in, academia that are pursuing, rehabilitation through exercise and medicine. So that's a huge point. Now, this specific question, Dr. Ratey, I'm not sure if you know the answer on top of your head, and I'm asking this point blank, so feel free to skip if you like. But, with regards to physiology, we often hear when there is an increased amount of hormones, there is kind of like a downregulation of receptors, essentially accommodating the increase of this that you can get, for example, through drugs that affect your serotonin, dopamine, and all this. Now, that kind of leads to a lot of individuals increasing their dosage. My question is this. I've seen so many individuals who've exercised consistently, not changing anything, yet they still have the great same positive effects. Why is it that, upregulation or downregulation doesn't affect that aspect of it? Do you know?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I think what you find is the following: when you do it naturally. Okay, let's take a very important hormone that gets upregulated, oxytocin, the
Hmm.
bonding hormone. Okay, when you give oxytocin to people, you have an effect on to downregulate future effectiveness of oxytocin. You may overwhelm the receptors, and when that happens, and instead of just building more receptors, because it's such a big bolus, such a big amount that you give, and it may make for less oxytocin over the course of life. With exercise, it's a gradual and consistent up upgrading, up pressing up the manufacture, the release, and then you have the gradual increase in receptors. So it's a different way, right? It's the same way we see with Parkinson's disease. Okay, the same thing, and that's been studied so much.
Right.
When you exercise, you not only challenge those dopamine cells in the striatum that are left to make more, but you enrich the receptors postsynaptically, which is really important. And I hope I'm not overwhelming your audience here,
No.
but that's what happens. So you see an increase in growth of dopamine receptors, which makes the Parkinson's problem less. And that's one group of cells that we know a lot about.
Absolutely. And Dr. Raid, you made a good point, so I'll just try to simplify. You probably know better, so correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, hormones, let's just think of it as kind of a little ball right here. Every hormone has a receptor, and then they can couple. And there's many receptors, there's many hormones. What ends up happening when we take drugs or things of that nature is instead of one hormone, we get, let's say, three. And the body recognizes that it has a lot of, hormones relative to what it had before. And it's like, okay, well, this seems a little extreme. How about we take away some of our receptors and save some energy in that regard? So essentially, what Dr. Ratey was saying, from my understanding, is when we're doing exercise, we gradually increase the amount of receptors, and the hormones are also gradually increased, and not in an extreme way like a drug, which makes this a lot more, maintainable. Whereas for drugs, it causes the receptors to go away, and that's what can lead to depression, for example, if we just increase the amount of serotonin in our body extremely like that. And thank you so much for that answer, Dr. Rady. That's something that I've always been wondering about, and it's
Yeah. No, it's the holistic way, the gradual increase, and consistent increase. You can get a whole lot of when you're doing intense exercise, you get a whole lot of neurotransmitters and hormones that are released, but not nearly as much as, say, the antidepressants or most of the stimulants or any of the medicines that mess around with our neurochemistry. You get a lot, and it's kept up there because the drug doesn't go away. With exercise, you get a bolus, you get an up regulation, and then you get it coming down over time. So it's a more natural, gradual change in the brain rather than the specific use of the drug.
Absolutely. And, Dr. John Ratey, I just want to ask you one question. You have years of experience in psychiatry. You're known as one of the best doctors among your colleagues since like the 1970s, which is a decent amount of time, if you ask me. You know, with all of your experience, with your expertise in exercise, not only for the physical health, but the mental side too, what recommendation would you have for, future physicians that are going into the medical field now where they're bombarded with all these drugs and all these options and individuals visiting them with amazing food every single day to try to get them to buy drugs?
Yeah, no, but it's what I can say is this. I think the message is getting out there that it's not just drugs, it's lifestyle that's so important for health, in physical and mental health, especially with COVID. There isn't any better promoter of what exercise can do for you than COVID, because the huge comorbidities of obesity, diabetes, heart disease that make COVID a killer are all tempered down by exercise. It helps correct the body, helps you. I mean, the reason why we in the US are having such a horrible time with COVID, notwithstanding our leaders, but that's another whole story. but it's because we are ripe for it. We're near 70% overweight. We're lots and lots of diabetes type 2, lots of sedentary lifestyles, made more so with COVID because we're not moving around as much. But this is a welcoming mat for COVID to come in. And we're working on a paper now where we're looking at specific ways that exercise helps prevent COVID from ravaging our body. This pre-vaccination, or as some, what we know is that if you're in good physical shape and you're in a physically fit, whatever that means for you, you're going to have a better response to the vaccine. You're going to make more antibodies. You're going to do better with the vaccine. And we have this data from not with COVID yet, but because we don't have that much vaccine in there, just a little bit. But with the flu vaccine, with other vaccines in the past, we know that you get a better response if you have a good exercise habit. Now, anyway, I could go on and on about COVID, but I don't want to just go there. But but I will say this: not only do you help correct all those physical invites to COVID, but there are 3 specific ways so far, and probably more on the way, because we have, for instance, there's 1,000 papers written about exercise and COVID.
Wow.
Already, I mean, we're just starting, I mean, about 1,000 papers already in the literature, and a lot of them about its effect on the physiology, obviously. Well, there are 3 specific ways that exercise helps. One, it raises the level of interferon, which is I learned about that in medical school in the 70s. Interferon was just coming on, right? It was the antiviral, our body's own antiviral, an anti-cancer drug or substance in our body. Well, exercise boosts interferon. So we have a better fight against viruses coming in. Plus, there are two other components that change. One is in our cells, the binding site for COVID is ACE2 in the angiotensin system.
Right.
Exercise helps balance that out, so we have less inviting ACE2s binding sites for the COVID horrendous little screwball that's going to make our lives miserable. Plus, we make a new, well, not to me new, we make another antioxidant that specifically protects the lungs that I didn't know about.
Wow.
Yeah, specifically protects the lungs. And this comes, we increase that by moving our muscles. And it has a very weird name, but I won't bother you with it. But this again, this is sort of a coming off of other literature of the flu, of other lung problems that people have, and so pneumonia, preventing that, so we have specifics and non-specific ways that exercise really helps. And we're hoping to promote this so that it's another reason to give people the motivation to exercise.